It took place on Sunday the 20th of October, was entitled Astral Projection, Becoming an Invisible Helper, and was given by Yanis Pittis. The program notes summarize its contents thus. Every student on the spiritual path knows that the most direct route to enlightenment is through service. Those already engaged in service on the physical plane may also during the night continue their work on the astral plane, albeit in an unconscious way. This talk will investigate the qualities and abilities of an invisible helper on the astral plane and the appropriate and safe techniques for conscious astral projection. Yanis Pittis has led courses in Kabbalah and related spiritual disciplines for more than 20 years.
Thank you very much for that welcome, and good evening to you all. Can you all hear me at the back? Good. The first thing that we need to know about astral projection is that that's very, very apt. What I was about to say was that we all have taken thousands of trips during the hours of the night. And indeed we have. And so, in this talk, we will try and outline a simple method by which those of you that do not remember your astral trips that you take during the night, that can remember them now, and thereafter learn how to use that natural process consciously and effectively so that you can astrally project. And of course, learn also some of the different methods by which you can, independently of the hours of the night, in any place, any time, take astral projections as well. Now, of course, the necessity of discussing the subject matter calls us to outline the reality of what is the astral plane and what is the astral body. The astral plane is one of the 7 planes of manifested existence. Life manifests itself in the multiplicity of itself through the 7 planes of manifested material substance, each plane being denser than the one above it, and of course finer than the one below it. And so the astral body is actually generated or created by substance that is taken from those subplanes of the astral plane. We said that there are 7 main planes of matter or substance in manifestation, and each of these planes has also 7 subplanes. Therefore, the astral plane has 49 subplanes. 7 makes it 49. And these 49 subplanes essentially incorporate what in the various Bibles of the world might be called the heavens and the hells of the after-death states. Naturally, human beings during the night travel in their out-of-body experiences in one or other of these planes. And they gravitate to one or other of them depending on what vibrations they carry within their own astral body. So the astral body is really one of the 7 vehicles of the entity that we are. The I Am Presence, when it begins its involutionary journey, clothes itself in various sheaths or vehicles. The finest of them being the volitional vehicle, then what we might call the highest emotional vehicle, then the higher mental vehicle. Below that, we will say it is the lower mental vehicle. Below that, the astral or lower passion vehicle. And then we have the etheric and the physical vehicle. So, naturally, the astral vehicle is the one just after your physio-etheric vehicle. Physio-etheric, I mean, I put the etheric double and the physical as one. For essentially they are one vehicle. The etheric being constituted by the higher subplanes of the physical plane, and the gross material body being constituted by the lower subplanes of matter of the physical plane. And so the astral plane really is where most of our feelings on everyday existence, and lower passions and instinctive passions manifest. And our astral body is created by those feelings and emotions and passions that we actually have. In the very early stages of our evolution, the astral body was but an inchoate mass of color surrounding the physioetheric vehicle. But, of course, as we moved on in our journey, we have managed to develop it to a certain degree, and most human beings have a well-defined astral body that essentially takes the shape and the form of the physical, only made up of a more subtle matter. So we might say, oh, are you okay? Did you hit your leg? You're all right. Okay. We might say that in the same way that light penetrates the element of air and also the element of water, and the element of water penetrates the element of earth, and naturally we can see that the density from the earth to the water to the air to light is obviously grades of that density or fineness. And so it is with our own actual vehicles. So the higher vehicles interpenetrate the lower, and our astral body is interpenetrated by our mental, and the astral body interpenetrates the physical. And when we go to the dentist, which I'm sure most of us do not like to go to, but we have to, when they give us this anesthetic, then part of our astral body is pushed out, and thereby we are not able to feel or sense the pain in that dental chair. So the function of the astral body is essentially to put the consciousness that we are in touch with the sentient plane of existence, which is the astral plane of existence. Another of its functions is to convert the sensual vibrations through the corresponding centers of energy in the astral body into the experience of pleasurable or unpleasurable. And of course, when you wish to repeat a pleasurable experience or avoid an unpleasurable experience, you have that quality that we call desire. And so desire actually brings into the equation an element of the mental or manas, or the mental body, because the mental body needs to be present to have the memory of the pleasurable experience that you wish to repeat and the memory of the unpleasurable one which you wish to avoid. And so without the memory, you would not really be able to want to repeat a pleasurable experience or avoid an unpleasurable one. So that is also part of the function of the astral body. Throughout our existence, we spend enormous amount of money in making our physical body look pretty and look good by all the various makeups that we use or nice clothes that we wear. If we would but spend a fraction of that on cultivating a more beautiful astral vehicle, then of course our evolution will be accelerated by a great deal. So we would also reflect on the means and ways by which we can develop our actual astral vehicle. Of course, the subject matter today is astral projection. And naturally, why do we want to actually astrally project? The appropriate reason to do so is to become an invisible helper. And what does that mean? It means to really be useful and a good servant in the astral plane as one might be also on the physical. But if you are not interested in progress and evolution and helping and serving others on the physical plane, why would you want to be on the astral plane? And therefore, if you are here without already having some degree of interest in progress in the spiritual field and in some way serving already on the physical plane, it might be out of curiosity or perhaps of some other selfish reason, such as always being able to know whether the bank manager will give you the bank loan that you are seeking, or whether your boss will give you the raise that you've been waiting for or bypass you again like the last time, or perhaps to tickle a little bit the vicar's memory, who's been giving all these powerful sermons on being good and so on about his secret habit that you might have picked up, and whatever else might be that it takes your fancy. Or some of the books that have been written about astral travel suggest that people in the astral plane can actually satisfy their sexual desires which they have been deprived of on the physical plane. Now I tell you, none of all of these are reasons for why to learn the sacred art of astral projection. The only reason to learn that consciously is that you may accelerate your own evolution by realizing and totally dissolving away the delusion of fear and all the associated ills that it brings, and helping others to overcome that fear of death and fear of being extinct when you lose your physical body, and all other types of fears of that kind. As well as that, of course, its usefulness may be that you may go to such schools of learning, the halls of learning and the halls of wisdom, as they are known, in the higher astral planes and in the higher mental planes, respectively. Such a reason will be a very good reason to invest the energy to learn how to astrally project. If you learn how to astrally project, then at the same time you also learn how to mentally project. And so, can you really make use of such an art? Well, if you can dream, which you do, if you can daydream, which you already do, if you can imagine yourself being in some other place other than right here and now, then of course, if you can do all these things, then you can also astrally project consciously. So, we already have said that during the hours of the night when we go to sleep, we actually produce that phenomena of astral projection naturally. And when we are out of our body, actually we give the physical form a greater opportunity to rejuvenate and recharge. Therefore, that is another reason why we might actually wish to choose to bring ourselves out into the astral plane temporarily for 5 or 10 minutes and give a great rejuvenating boost to the physical form. For imagine that you have not slept for a couple of nights because of certain pressures of daily life, and you have to perform, to give a lecture or to go on the stage if you are an actor or you are a doctor or whatever you might be in, whatever field of service you are involved in, and you are utterly exhausted. It will be very, very useful to be able to take 10 minutes and just consciously bring yourself outside of the physical form, give the physical form a quick boost like a battery charge. You know, when cars are flat, you can have a very fast battery charge or a very slow one over a whole 24 hours. Well, this is like being able to have a fast recharge for your physical form. There are, of course, other reasons, and throughout the course of the evening, we might highlight some of them. But essentially, throughout the night when we go to sleep, scientists who have investigated the whole period of sleep time, they have identified 3 major stages. But of course, the occult scientists know of 4 major stages. The 3 stages that the outer or exoteric scientists recognize are the first stage, which is the hypnagogic stage, as they call it, and that means really the beginning of you going to sleep, where all the events of the day are just being processed through the mind and through the brain, and you are sort of falling into a semi-sleep state, but also halfway awake. When that stage comes to an end, which is approximately 10 up to 20 minutes from the moment you hit the deck, so to speak, falling on your bed, then there is a certain phenomena. This phenomena is a kind of a gentle jerk that you may experience. Some of you may already have experienced it. Now that jerk is actually the signal or the sign that your astral body is beginning to dislodge itself from the physical. And this is the first stage. That jerk is because the astral body dislodges itself and puts itself at an angle from the physical body, and that's when it begins to externalize. So that next stage after the hypnagogic stage, and after that jerk happens, which might wake you up sometimes, is what is known as the A stage. The A stage of sleep lasts for approximately 90 minutes. During those 90 minutes, you are actually, as an entity, consciously out of your physical form, on the astral plane, using your astral vehicle, experiencing whatever you may experience. After those 90 minutes approximately, you come back, and that is known as the D stage. And during the D stage, there is what is known as the REM period, the rapid eye movement period, where your eyes are rapidly moving back and forth, up and down. And the difference between the A stage and the D stage is essentially that if you are awakened from the A stage, you will feel rather sleepy, you will feel a little bit disconnected, but very calm and at ease. But if you are woken up during the D stage, you will feel rather disturbed and shocked, as if you were just wrenched out of a very involved movie that you were watching. So the D stage is like consciousness watching very actively, very involved emotionally, a certain kind of a movie of events of the day before or the month before, or the current information and energy that your astral body has brought home. But the A stage is essentially when you are out of your body and experiencing the out-of-body fields of possibilities and opportunities. Now, this kind of experience that you have on each and every night that you go to sleep, it is possible to actually make confirmed and convince yourself that it happens also by a very simple way. Just when you fall asleep, prepare a simple little test and say to yourself that I wish to be woken up at the time towards the end of the first stage of A period, or towards the end of the second stage of A period. There is a certain scientific institute in America which has done research over many, many ordinary people who have gone to sleep and been watched and observed, and they were awoken in the end of A stage or in the end of D stage to make record of what actually are the phenomena. And naturally, they found that the greatest success of people remembering the full astral trip was actually when they were awakened during the latter part of the second A stage, which is approximately 2 hours and 15 to 3 hours and a half after you have fallen asleep. For remember, we said 10 to 20 minutes the hypnagogic stage, 90 minutes the first A stage, another 10 to 15 minutes of a D stage, and then another 90 minutes of an A stage. So if you actually put your music alarm clock, and make it a classical one so you don't have a shock when you are actually called from a beautiful astral journey back to your physical brain, and you time it so that it wakes you up at the time just towards the end of the first A period or the end of the second A period, then in that moment be quick to make a note or have a little recorder right next to you so that you can actually say quickly what it is that you have brought onto the physical brain. The reason for that is that very often, the very second that we enter the physical brain, we have very good memory of what experience we have had. But just a few seconds after, all that is wiped away because the vibrations of the gross material plane and etheric plane are so much more denser and powerful, they quickly wipe away the astral memory that you have brought, and therefore, if it is not imprinted appropriately on the physical brain, the memory will be wiped away. So if for a few days you actually try this little experiment and you wake yourself up towards the end of the first A or the second A period, then you will begin to remember and recall your astral trips. And that, of course, will give you the conviction that indeed you are actually traveling in the hours of the night, and you are astrally projecting. Now, if you want to really go further and test that, then what you can do is give yourself, before you go to sleep, a certain task. As an example, you might say, if you have a mother or a father that might be sick and it's far away from you, say that I want to visit tonight my mother and really see in what condition she is, how she's feeling, and see some details in her room where things actually are. And then when you wake up during the A stage, make a note of what you have brought from that astral trip. And naturally, then you can check that with your mother, or you can do it with a friend who lives in another country or far away, and really have the conviction that you are definitely able to do that. Now, there have been so many events that I have actually been recorded of a proof that astral projection does actually exist, and it is absolutely real. There is a documented story such as there were a couple of boys that were exploring some caves under a farm, and suddenly started rain, and they tried to find their way out of the caves, for water started coming into the caves, and they were terrified, and so in their panic they could not find the way out. So one of the boys decided to continue to run, whereas the other said, I will stay here and wait until somebody actually finds us. Now the boy that tried to start running hither and thither to find the way out of the caves fell and hit his head on a stone, and naturally by accident was actually projected outwardly of him from his physical form. So with the freedom of the astral body, very quickly he traveled the various caves and found the way out through the light. And when he returned back and was awakened into his body, although he had a bit of a pain in his head, nevertheless he was able to take the hand of the other boy and follow what he had seen in his astral projection and save themselves and take themselves out of the caves. There is another documented story of this woman that was paralyzed from the waist below, and indeed one day she had said to her parents, look, you have been looking after me for so long, why don't you take a holiday and go and rest somewhere in another town? I will be fine, I will have a friend come and visit me, stay with me, and all will be well. So they did just that, and the friend came and they were spending very good time together until the phone rang, and the friend was told that her sick father that was actually in hospital was ready to die, and she must come at once. That night a fire broke out next door, and the smoke was actually coming into the flat of the half-paralyzed girl, and she called and shouted, but no one would actually hear anything, and she actually panicked, and she didn't know what to do. But then she remembered that she was, during the night, able to have all these experiences out of her body, and so she decided to try and project herself out of her physical form and get some help. And so she did, and because she could not find anybody else that could be imprinted with her projection and the help that she needed for her physical form, she actually gravitated towards where her friend was in the hospital with the sick father who was dying, and so managed to imprint the dying father's brain with the thought that to tell her daughter that her friend is in danger to be burned alive. And the daughter, hearing these words from the dying father's lips, immediately rushed to the house and naturally saved that lady's life. And such stories abound. There is even actually documented evidence sometime in the 1870s when an MP called A.T. or T.P. O'Connor was on his way to Ireland. But and other MPs actually saw his double or his astral body in the Houses of Parliament in the normal position which he held. Another story again of two MPs, Sir, I think it was Sir McNeill and Sir Hafer, who saw Mr. or Sir Nash, who was actually sick in bed, and yet they saw him in the Houses of Parliament and nodded to him, and one of them asked him a question, but he didn't reply, and then suddenly he vanished before their eyes. And then they realized that perhaps he was actually dying in his deathbed, for he was very sick. But such documented evidence do exist, and they can be found in the many books on astral projection. And there is one very, very good book that has lots and lots of such evidence by Sylvan and Muldron, and I'm sure the library will have it here if you cannot find it in the books for you. It's quite an old book, but there is a lot of collected evidence regarding that this kind of stories. Of course, I have had my own experiences of astral projection, else I will not be sitting here and talking to you about the subject matter if I had never done it myself, because that will be foolish, because it will only be a regurgitation of information that I may have picked up from here and there. And I tell you that is not the case. From the very early age of my life, from being a young child, I remember very, very well that I will come out of my body and travel at great speeds in a place, in a distant land, in a special house where some great teacher will give instruction to his students. And I will receive much knowledge at the time and bring it back to my physical brain. And whereas other children had great objections to being put to sleep, I actually rejoiced and looked forward to going to sleep, for I remember that my night life was so active and so stimulating, and so many wonderful things that I was picking up from them. So naturally my experience was from a very young age in respect of this astral plane. So fearlessness was there as far as this phenomenon of death was concerned, for I realized that there is no such thing as death, but there is only difference of dimensions and states. At another time I was told that really I snored when I was asleep, and I didn't believe it, of course. Nobody does. Until one day I was in a little hotel in Oxford, having just come to this country, and we were staying with a friend, and stayed the night there to explore all the wonderful sights of Oxford, and there are many there with all the universities and the beautiful canals and so on. It's a beautiful city for those of you that have not visited it. And that evening, I actually was conscious on the astral plane, seeing my physical form snoring away like a tractor. And so I realized that what others were saying was absolutely true. And so from then onwards, I have accepted the reality that I do actually snore. And my wife, who is present here today, will confirm to that reality. For I wake her up sometimes. So, of course it can be stopped, and certainly with certain kinds of practices it can be stopped if one wants to invest the energy and the necessary investment of time to actually make it happen. There are, of course, some simple devices that one can buy from a chemist and put on the nose to help that process. Anyway, there is many evidence and many stories. I remember one of these teachers that you may have read here, some of the books regarding this teacher, known as Daskalos, the Cypriot healer, the Magus of Strovolos, yes? Now, I spent quite a bit of time with this man, and he would turn up in my house. He lived in Cyprus, and I lived in London, in Holland Park at the time. Now I live in Sussex, further away. But I remember very clearly at different times of the day or night, he would actually turn up and naturally materialize his body to a certain degree so that I can actually see it and make a note, and he will convey to me something that was important, or some aspect of the teaching, or whatever was actually necessary. And the beautiful thing was that I saw him taking a different form, and that gave me the idea that you are not limited to keeping the actual counterpart of the physical form that your astral body takes. He was able to take the form of a radiant disk like a sun, which filled the whole ceiling when he actually manifested with the particular color frequency that he was carrying at the time. So if he was trying to convey to me some kind of spiritual teaching, then beautiful radiant violet light will be the whole aura of that radiant disk. If he wanted to convey something much more intellectual, then a very yellow radiant color will be caressing the whole aura of that radiant disk. And if there were other more mundane elements that he wanted to inform me about, then he may have more a red color aura in that radiant disk that meant that he was informing me of some kind of information to do with the administration of matters pertaining on the physical plane to do with the work. So I have had directly the experience from teachers, and when we talk about what it is to be an invisible helper, I will tell you, of course, some additional stories of some of the things that I, as well as other individuals who are members of these bands of invisible helpers, of these groups of invisible helpers in the inner planes, get up to during the night. And indeed, many phenomena that occur on the physical plane where sudden healings apparently occur, and sudden individuals who are in a terrible mental state wake up and feel perfectly at ease, might be the intervention from some invisible helpers. And so let us take it for granted that indeed we all, in the hours of the night, astrally project, and it is a very simple matter to learn how to consciously astrally project. So one of the methods by which we can actually produce that phenomena in actuality is to take advantage of the natural mechanism that occurs just before we go to sleep. And the way to begin to do that is, first of all, to clear all the worries from your mind. Because if you are obviously having a lot of physical worries, then they will interfere and make the hypnagogic state last too long, and then you will fall asleep. You will not be able to take advantage of it. So clearing off from your mind all matters that pertain to your worries. Take a piece of paper as an example and write down all the things that you need to do as a personality on the physical plane. And then put them in the fridge and say, I will deal with them when I come back from the astral plane. And so, in having chosen a place that you want to lay your body to astrally project, make sure that it is not next to electrical wiring, for that will interfere heavily. Make sure that your mattress, if you really want to have a good result, does not have powerful springs, metal springs, for that will actually interfere. Any heavy makeup should be taken off. Any heavy jewelry should be taken off. For all of these carry their own particular vibrations and can actually interfere with the success of your first test run. So the way to really bring about this phenomena is, first of all, as we said, to recognize that you do it every night and wake yourself up towards the end of an A period sleep and make a note and record and convince yourself that it happens. Then try again in the hours of the night for a week to actually prolong a little bit the hypnagogic state consciously, and just when you are about to fall asleep, let your body fall asleep, but you maintain yourself awake, and thus you wake yourself up in the dream state. And some of you may have had that phenomena when you are actually awake in the dream state. You are dreaming apparently, but you are awake in it, and you can actually do things consciously and manipulate certain events. Now, if it is a real astral projection, then you cannot manipulate all events. If it is a dream state in your head, then when you are awake, you can actually change anything and everything, and nothing can interfere with it. So as an example, if a car is coming towards you, the physical counterpart of a car, then it will just pass right through you. And if you are trying to concentrate and make it change course, it will not do so. It will pass right through you. It will not damage your astral body. So be not fearful if you are on the astral plane and suddenly you're walking on the road and a car passes, for it will not damage you because the two dimensions are of different matter, and thereby the subtle vibrations of the astral body do not get shocked by the physical matter that passes through them. And so the astral body can pass through walls. I see sometimes bodies coming out of their physical forms and opening doors to actually walk out of rooms. It is not necessary. You can just walk right through the door without opening the door, yes? So in their minds, they still feel that they have to open the door. But consciously, if you realize that you are in a different dimension, then you can just pass through the door or through the wall without interference. So indeed, you have the capacity to transfer that subtle awakened state by letting your body fall asleep and you carrying that awakened state into the dream world. And if you can do that for a few nights, then you are ready to really take a conscious test of astrally projecting. Then you can choose it at a normal day or evening. And one of the things that you would have realized if you have maintained yourself awake and pass through that slight jerk that occurs just before you're falling asleep, you would have noticed a certain astral signal. This astral signal is very, very important because it will help you to make your conscious astral projection. This astral signal may take the form of either the room suddenly becoming brighter, you notice a brightness in the room, or you might suddenly feel a buzz in your forehead, or a ripple of energy in your chest, or a kind of a breeze of a wind suddenly passing. And so there have been a recording of many different phenomena that occurred during the moment of the exteriorization of the astral body from the physical. But these are some of the main ones. And so if you have observed yourself as you are coming out during the hours of the night, and you have been able to maintain and wake yourself up in your dream state, you may have noticed what your actual signal is. And if you do notice it, then make a note, because that will be very helpful. So in your test day, when you want to really consciously astrally project, you will focus your attention on that signal and on one other matter. This other matter is the necessity for why you are actually astrally projecting. There are two powerful drives on the astral plane. On the more grosser realm is hunger and sex. But in the higher realm is love and hunger for spiritual knowledge. And so if you make your necessity love, i.e. because you love someone who is in the faraway place and they are sick or they need your assistance, and you deeply want to be there with them, but events do not allow you to travel there on the physical plane, then use that as your necessity. So having prepared yourself, maybe have a shower or a bath, and having chosen your safe place, then lie down and focus the attention in your breath. Take a few comfortable deep breaths and allow that regularity of the breath to really relax your body, for all begins with relaxation. And be aware not to fall asleep, maintaining your self-awareness during that relaxing period. So when you feel that you are actually really relaxed, then focus the attention on that signal. And for about 5 minutes, concentrate on that signal, and then for another 5 minutes on the actual necessity of your destination. Then begin to actually build, just above you, a counter image of your physical form. Imagine that like a steam rises out of your physical body and creates this beautiful image of your physical form just above you. And then see it being lifted up towards the ceiling, looking down at your physical form. After a few moments, just relax again and you'll find that that image that you have created falls back into your body. The second time that you try and do that, then focus the attention in your destination, and at that moment either you will find yourself actualized in the place where you have set your mind to go to, or not. If not, then return back and focus your attention again on your astral signal and concentrate again on the destination, for you might not have been able to imprint that in the astral counterpart of your consciousness. This is one of the methods to astrally project, but there are, of course, other methods. One of the other methods is to imagine when you are lying on your bed that you are actually at the bottom of a lake. And after deeply relaxing your body, to feel the same strong force that you have when you're trying to rise out of the lake when you're just running out of breath, and you really force yourself to rise out of the water, to have that feeling, that desire, that power to really rise out of your body with that same sense. But before you actually do that conviction in your mind, focus your attention on the destination that you actually want to go to. That forms the necessity for why you are externalizing yourself out of your physical form. Another very wonderful method, which has been very successful for some of the students that were taught it, is to lie down again and use the breath as the vehicle to astrally project. You take 40 breaths, deep breaths, to approximately 12 counts in breath, 6 counts holding the breath, 12 counts the out breath. 12 counts mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So to count the 40, you might actually put your hands on your stomach, and each time you complete one breath, you tap with one finger. And then the second complete breath, you tap with your second finger. After you have done 40 complete breaths of that, simultaneously focusing your attention on the astral signal if you know it, and if you don't know it, just on your destination that you have set your mind to go to, then knowing, behold, because your astral body would have been so highly charged by the 40 breaths, you will find yourself astrally projecting. Of actually doing it. But all of these include putting your body to sleep, i.e. the body falls asleep and you are being externalized. There is one other way which has not been publicized anywhere that I know of in any of the books that have been written on this subject matter. And this is the most advanced way, and it is a way that initiates and great masters employ whenever they need to. And that is that they create what is known as a Mayavanic body, another actual body by the power of their creativity. They take sometimes 10 days. If you are doing it for the first time, it will take at least 10 days to build and create this form of a counterpart of yourself in some special part of your house which you will not be interfered by others. And then you learn to transfer your consciousness into that form that you have built and learn how to employ the 4 great ethers, which are the kinetic ether, by using your consciousness and the kinetic ether to make that form move its hands, move its legs and walk, by using the sentient ether so that that form can actually sense and pick up information, by using the imprinting ether so that that form, whatever it experiences, has the ability to imprint it upon itself so that when it comes back to you, it can give you the information. And then obviously using the creative ether to create that form with the kind of power and possibility that it can act as your instrument. And thus, those that are able to create such a form and employ these 4 great ethers are able to be in more places than once at the same time. So the physical form can be giving a talk right here and now, while that other form can actually be in some other place helping somebody else. And not only one, you can make several. And so the masters very often can manifest at the same time to many students in different parts of the world. And the students are all amazed that the master is giving them the full attention. They feel special and privilege, for the master's attention is upon them. Little do they know that the master probably simultaneously is conveying teaching to thousands and maybe millions at the same time. And so, indeed, this is the most advanced way of employing the astral or the mental planes. But of course, it is a very difficult task to accomplish, and it requires the powers of concentration, the powers of visualization, and the powers of meditation. But the earlier stages that I have highlighted, of course, are much easier, for they employ the facility which already exists in your natural constitution for going out during each and every night. So we said that the purpose for doing this is to really become an invisible helper. And what is an invisible helper, and what do they do? Well, the invisible helpers is a kind of a hierarchy that ranges from the ordinary departed souls from the physical plane that are a little bit awake and have the interest to be of value and of service, and so they are given a little task for a period of time to oversee a little granddaughter or a grandson, and just project some kind thoughts into their minds and into their hearts, to the next stage up of young students on the probationary path who want to be useful, and they are very eager to be of some service during the hours of the night, and so they may gravitate to one of these bands of invisible helpers, which is overseen by an initiate of some degree, to actual full accepted students of the great masters, to initiates, and of course the masters themselves. So this great spiritual hierarchy of the spiritual parents of humanity has always existed upon this planet, will always exist, and is in existence right here and now as we speak. And they oversee the great manifold avenues of evolution of humanity, and particularly the 7 major avenues of evolution, which are known as the 7 great rays, which predominantly individuals gravitate to one or other of these rays. Meaning, as an example, those who are politicians and leaders of the world, certain times they are faced with very crucial decisions, and suddenly, in the hours of the night, they may become aware of a solution or a way that they can avert a great disaster. And so when they wake up, they may bring that information. That information may have been put there in the vicinity where they actually live and have their being by one of the great initiates or teachers. I remember in one case where I was traveling out of my body, and I saw a very gruesome phenomena. A young lady in Greece, it was somewhere in Larissa, in the Midlands of Greece, had just had a baby, and she dumped it in a rubbish bin and tried to escape. And of course, this baby would have died. And so I saw the phenomena, and what was I to do? My physical body was at least 200 kilometers away from where this event had happened. And so I tried to see if anybody was around that I could actually impress that information on. And no one was able to receive the impression, because they were all busy walking, thinking about their work and this and that and the other, agitated about something or other. And so eventually I actually managed to impress a kind of what you will call a vagabond that sits on the sort of benches in the park. And he happened to be absent-minded for a moment, and his brain was imprinted to go and look in the rubbish. And he found the baby, and of course he called the alarm, started shouting, and people came, and the baby was actually saved. And so such an act can be done by an invisible helper. There are many such events documented. I recommend that you buy a little booklet here that I'm sure is in the Theosophical bookshop by Leadbitter, Invisible Helpers by Leadbitter. Is that not the title? Yeah. And you will find many stories. One of the stories was a little boy had gone out to play in the fields, and he fell into a large big ditch and hit his head and became unconscious. And for a long time, he never came back, and so the whole family started being agitated. They called the police, the local fire brigade. They were all out looking. They had not found anything. And the little sister that he had was actually praying and saying, please, please, God, bring back my little brother. And Leadbitter apparently was passing by, and he perceived this call, this prayer of the little girl, and he responded to it. And he went and looked and found the boy unconscious, and he tried to help it to rise, but he could not do it. And so he tried to impress the father, but the father was too upset with the loss of his son. He was not impressionable. He tried to impress others. He was not succeeding. And eventually he succeeded to impress the dog of the family. And so the dog actually went to the father, started tugging the trousers, and eventually the father took notice of the dog that wanted to go out somewhere, and the dog led the people to where the boy was actually lying, and naturally the boy was actually saved. And so there are many such stories. Can we actually travel to the future or to the past? Yes, we can also. But we cannot change anything from the past. Imagine if you could actually change something from the past. Yeah? If you change it, imagine you could actually change the situation of your birth. Then you wouldn't be there to be making the change, would you? In the first place. So changing the past is an impossibility. But you can actually see certain things into the future and come back and then make changes in your here and now life, which will obviously alter your future if you had seen that the way you were acting, behaving, or vibrating might produce some unpleasant or unhelpful phenomena into your future. I tell you of one situation that occurred to me very recently. I was in Greece, and a couple of years ago we bought a large property in which this college, the Philalethian College, is situated in Sussex. And we had a lot of problems with the title. And I understood that everything was in order and the title was fine. And in my actual astral projection, I became aware into the future of an event where apparently the solicitors that we were using had gone into administration, or they had been intervened by the law society, and I was actually sitting in another lawyer's office waiting to pick up my title papers and so on and so on. And I woke up, and when I came back to England, I remembered obviously very vividly this event, so I called my lawyers and tried to get all my documents in advance before they were intervened. But they refused by all means that they knew how to give them, because they pretended that all was in order. I had that full conviction, and I should have followed right through and gone there, but I lived in Sussex and they were in Luton. And so I thought the journey was too long, and knowing behold, 2 weeks later, I get a telephone call from another firm of lawyers saying that, sorry, Mr. Peters, but your lawyers have been intervened and they are no longer in practice, and you must come along and pick up your files, etc., etc. Then I had discovered, in looking at the files, that there was no title, and I was told that there was a title. And so the whole problem was obviously revealed. And so I was able to see well in advance the actual events, and then I found myself in that exact office, the exact lawyers that I saw in my out-of-body experience, sitting there waiting for the lawyer to make all his telephone calls and confirm that I was who I was saying I was, and so he can give me the actual documents. There are many such situations. There was another time when I was with my teacher, and before, of course, this event had occurred, I met a young lady in a park. And one day we had said that we will meet in the park again, and she didn't come. So I inquired what had happened, and apparently her sister had been taken into hospital, and she was in a coma. So I went to see her in the hospital, and I had not seen the sister who was in a coma because they wouldn't let me. But I saw the other sister, and we talked, and she was very, very sad. And I said, I will see what I can do. But at that time, the particular teacher was actually not in town. And so I thought, I will see how developed this teacher is. I would actually meditate on him and see if he will be able to do something about it, even though he was in another place. And during my meditation, I actually came out of my body, and I saw that I and the teacher gravitated into where this lady in coma was in the hospital. And he told me to put my hands on her head, and he put his hands on her heart center, and we both linked with her higher self, and this beautiful radiant being, which was the higher self, came back and entered the body. I woke up, obviously in my physical form, and excited, I called the sister to tell her of what I had witnessed, but she wasn't there. So I went to the hospital, and there it was the sister, the parents, and the grandparents, all excited and very happy, because the sister had come back, and she was in full good health. And in fact, the doctors were saying that she would actually be released. And so when all the nurses and doctors came out of the room, the sister said, "Come and I will introduce you to my sister." So I walked into the room, and she said, "It's you. It's you." I had never met this human being, and she had never met me in the physical body. And she was so utterly amazed. And so she related then the story to everybody, how these two luminous beings, one lesser than the other, that was me, had entered the room and created this wonderful happening. And she then said, "Well, I would like to meet your teacher and follow the teachings," which of course she duly did when she was out of the hospital and so on. So there are many, many such events. I remember another time there was a Greek lady that called me on the phone and said, "My friend is disappeared for several days, and really I have heard from some other friend that you are able to do certain things. Can you please find out, is she dead, is she alive? I need to contact her parents if she's not alive. What has happened to her?" So I said, "I'll see what I can do." I never promise anything, because it is totally inappropriate to raise the hopes of people in desperation. So I actually tried to investigate, and what I found was that she had fallen under the spell of a certain cult. She was alive, but she was totally under the influence of this entity known as Hubbard. So if anybody here is a Scientologist, I apologize for offending the movement. But this is a true and real story. And this human being was utterly controlled by this Hubbard's influence. And she was like a dull creature in one of these rooms with some machineries which they call the testing of your emotions and all the rest of it. And she was sitting there, and I managed to actually impress upon her brain that she was obviously there against her true will. And I expelled, if you like, the influence of this Hubbard entity from her consciousness. And naturally, I helped her to get her self-confidence, and then demand that she was let out, and she was allowed to leave, and so she wandered back, and her friend had found her. And so that is some of the ways by which individuals can actually be of great help in the invisible realms of the astral plane. There are many, many, many different examples that we can actually use. There is another situation where one of my students had a friend of hers that committed suicide, and she was very disturbed and very unhappy. And obviously the parents of the common suicide girl were very, very upset, and they wanted to know what had happened and why and all the rest of it. Was there drugs involved? Was there anything else? So I tried to find out, and I saw this human being in a terrible state, surrounded by some very, very heavy depressive vibrations of dark browns and grays and so on. And indeed, it was very difficult, and it took several attempts before my thought forms could actually penetrate her mind. And only after a few attempts was I able to actually get her attention to wake up and listen And so slowly I managed to help her and taking her into special localities in the astral plane where there are other invisible helpers that will actually take care of such individuals and assist them to overcome this particular state. And indeed, those who commit suicide commit a great crime against the law of evolution, for they deliberately turn their back against the Holy Spirit, which has created this wonderful physical form for them, and they pay a heavy-duty karmic price. But at least this human being was helped to gravitate quickly out of that dark realm from which she might have spent what might be called many years in the earthly plane. For I remember another teacher telling me of a story that a man and a woman were arguing, and they were lovers, and they were arguing very heavily, and he overstepped down the stairs, he hit his head, and actually got killed. It was an accident. But he constantly played over the same story of the last words that he had actually said to his girlfriend. You will see, I am going, but you will come and look for me. You will come and seek me out. You will forgive me, I will forgive you, and we will be together again. He kept turning over and over this in his mind. He was not able to move from that state. In his vision, he still had this lady, some 50 years later, who had already got married and had grandchildren and so on. He still had her as an image of that youthful young lady that he was in love with, keep still repeating the same image. And this particular teacher found this individual and helped him to realize that actually he had passed onto another plane. He did not believe. He was just locked up in this thought form, and he was playing out the same thought form over and over in his mind like a tape recording for 50 whole years, which constituted on the physical plane 50 whole years. For in the astral plane, time is not quite like that as it is in the physical plane. A few minutes there may actually be a much longer period here, or 90 minutes there might be just a few moments here. And so it is very elastic time. So time is pressing on us right now, and so what I would like to say is I have given you enough stories and evidence of being an invisible helper, as well as documented stories and evidence of where astral projection has occurred, and have highlighted some of the simple ways by which you can actually test it for yourself and bring about that evidence and conviction for yourself. Now, if you have any questions regarding what I already have highlighted and outlined, I will be happy to answer them.
Can you have what seems like a long dream, but it's only a few seconds in reality?
Yes, it can be. In fact, I remember there is a documented story where a Sufi master was somewhere in Egypt, and a student came to him and asked him about time and the different planes. And so the Sufi teacher got a big bucket of water, and he said to the student, dip your head into the water. And he dipped his head into the water, and then the teacher pulled his head out. It was just a few seconds, dipping the head into the water and then raising it out again. In those few seconds, the individual had a whole lifetime played out. He dreamed of being on a ship which was wrecked, and he was on the banks of Egypt, and there he was taken by some travelers, and he was given some food and clothing. He eventually met this beautiful lady and got married and got favor with a pharaoh, and he became a trusted member of the pharaoh's family, and he was given a title and lived a whole lifetime, and then he died a very happy man with having born several children and been in service to the pharaoh. And all of that whole lifetime was played out in a few seconds of the teacher projecting this into his mind at the time when his head was in the water. So yes, in a few seconds you might actually feel that a whole lifetime has been played out. Yeah?
How do you actually mentally project? How is projection from mind to mind?
The question was, how do you mentally project?
Well, there are different levels to this. There is thought transference, which is not mental projection, i.e. Taking your mental body out of your physical and traveling in the mental body. That is a different matter. You can project a thought form by seeing your friend who is actually in another town, as an example, and you visualize his image, and you want him to do something which is urgent. So you can visualize them and concentrate on their minds and concentrate on the image of what you want to convey to them, and clothe it with the intelligence of traveling there and staying around their head until such time as in a moment of open-mindedness the human being can absorb it. Because you can project a mental thought form, but if the mind is not open to receive it, it's a bit like a telephone number. When you are dialing, it gives you an engaged tone, yes? So you've got to wait until the phone is not engaged so that you can connect. So it is with such a situation. And in actual laboratory conditions, many experiments of this, which is called telepathy or thought transference, have been made and have had tremendous successes. And so you can play this little thing with friends sitting on one room and another sitting in another room, and you hold a red color paper, and you project this red color paper, and the other person is endeavoring to be in a receptive state, and then receives the colors, and you may go through several different geometric shapes and then cross-check with him or her and see how successful you have been. So by the practice of doing that, of course, you succeed in being able to be more effective in thought transference. But mental projection is actually follows suit the same principle as the astral projection. When you have raised your astral double out of your physical form, and it's either above in the ceiling looking down on the physical form, or at the edge of your bed looking at your physical form on the bed, at that moment you can either concentrate on your destination and see your mental body disengaging from the astral and travel with your mental body, or travel with the astral body as well. If you travel with a mental body, it's actually like the speed of lightning, even faster than the speed of lightning. I remember at one time I was again in Holland Park, and in this occasion I mentally projected suddenly. And it was so fast that I came out of the planet completely, and I was observing the aura of the whole planet and seeing my body down. I got a bit of a shock, and I rushed right down, and it was so fast that I went right through my body, right out the other side of the planet and out again. Then I realized that I must control this ability. And so I came back a bit slower and settled in my physical form. Of course, during the hours of the night, students are trained how to handle such things. And of course, astral projection can be done for spiritual purposes as well. To go, as an example, to the master's ashram or to his private quarters for some interview, or to receive some teaching, or to pass certain tests. As an example, one of the tests might be to distinguish between an astral form that is ensouled or an astral form that is like a shell. And to know the difference between an empty shell, like a dead physical corpse, or an astral body that has a kind of vivification, like a life, and reacts and responds as if it were alive, but it is not ensouled by the entity. To distinguish between the two. Or to be able to see the reactions that you may have when you come in contact with very unpleasant individuals who have done you terrible wrong in the physical plane, so that how you will react, if you will react with aversion, or you will react with an appropriate inner equilibrium. Or another test about the intensity of light that you can actually handle. You know, when you look at the sun and it's too bright, you cannot actually handle it. In these higher planes, you are also tested to what level of intensity of light you might be able to handle and absorb without causing a disturbance in your own inner equilibrium. Or it might be that the master may wish to convey to you some guidance in respect of some element which you are still holding on to, which is preventing you from a greater platform of service. And so the way to actually beautify your astral body, you have mirrors, and you go in the mirror and look and say, oh, I look a bit old, I look a bit tired, I need to do something with my physical form. But what is a psychic mirror, where you can actually go and look, what is your psychic body looking like? Some of you might actually become very highly impressed when you look at your astral bodies, because they are so brilliant and light with colors, and obviously they might give you the sense that astrally you are far more beautiful than you might be in a physical form. Or it might be the other way around, that you look at your astral body and you run away because it looks like a beast. The Beauty and the Beast might have something to do with this, where someone may apparently have a physical form that does not look so attractive, but they are such a spiritually selfless and magnificently benevolent human being that in their astral body they have the vibrations that have beautified this form. The incredible thing is that in the astral body you cannot lie. Yes, whatever you're feeling is self-evident in the moment. You cannot prevent others seeing it. And in the astral plane, your hatreds, your jealousies, your joys, your happiness, your benevolent feelings all immediately reveal themselves. And the quality of the emotion determines the actual form that the image takes that is seen in your astral body. So if the quality of the vibration of your emotion is a fine and higher quality, then the form will be wonderful. And so people who are meditating in a very devotional state towards a master or God or the teacher, you might watch them and you will see these beautiful blue-like flowers emanating out of their forehead. And that was the original purpose for bringing flowers to a place of worship, to a higher God or to a higher entity. It is not the flowers that we cut from the garden that we take now, and the flowers of garlands that we throw in churches and so on. But it was the flowers that we truly generated in our own astral and mental bodies by our devotion. And this indeed is what actually occurs. And when, of course, you are vibrating with a different energy, a different form will be seen in your astral body. So, yes. Yes, it's very important. Thank you very much for the question. And so for the time that we have, I would like to say that protection is very, very important. But the first thing that I like to say is that every time that you go to sleep at night, you are already protected. You don't come back in your physical form and find that somebody else occupies your physical form, do you? So somehow this house that you have is very well protected, and nobody interferes with it. Indeed, there is what is known the guardian archangel. This guardian archangel, the Greeks have called Sandalphon, which means a co-worker, a co-brother. It is simultaneously an aspect of your higher self and an independent entity, an agent and a servant of the Holy Spirit, or the Brahma aspect if you're a Hindu. Naturally, this entity is the one that utterly protects your physical form when in the hours of the night you are out of body. And sleep period, when you are out of body, is a sacred time respected even by the wildest beasts. It is said that in the jungle, if you are really asleep, wild beasts will not trouble your physical form unless they are utterly starving, and essentially their own extinction is in the equation. They may actually interfere with your sleeping state. And so the stage of sleep is respected by all entities. However, just like there are mischievous entities on the physical plane who play a prank or who are trying to manipulate you on the physical plane to take your money out of your pocket or whatever else, so there are such entities on the astral plane. And in fact, worse, there are some entities, human entities, that have chosen not to follow the path of evolution, but they're still hanging on to the methods and ways of involution, which is the forces of separateness. And such entities may interfere if your vehicle has a kind of status or has the kind of power on the physical plane that may serve their vested selfish interest. At that time, certain kind of additional protection, especially when you consciously astrally project from any place at any time. That is when you need additional protection. And the additional protection that I would give is this. Invoke the blessing, if you are a Christian, of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. If you are a Hindu, the Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. If you are a Muslim, Allah. It doesn't matter. If you are an atheist, invoke the supreme energy, supreme cohesive principle, supreme energizing principle, and supreme creative principle in the universe. Whatever you are, it matters not. Invoke the absolute energies and imagine that by the power of the absolute flowing through the I am presence within you, you create the symbol of the absolute, which is a circle of light around your physical form, horizontally this way, around your physical form. Then create another circle vertically up and down under your physical form, and then another circle in front, up and below, under your physical form again. Thus, in that way, you have created what is known as the divine encircled cross. So you have a cross in front of you, a cross above you, a cross to the left, a cross below you, a cross to the right, and a cross behind you. For the three encircled circles that you have created form this, in the sixth direction, these crosses. A cross is a symbol, the equilibrium and balance, and all forces and energies must become equilibrarized, i.e. balanced, before they enter. Thus you declare this place in space to be a sanctuary of protection only for your physical form, and that no spirits incarnate or discarnate of any order with malicious intentions can enter this divine sacred space that you have created. So if you actually follow that, will be very, very powerful. Various books on astral projection suggest that you take copper and create a circle with copper, and take salt and sprinkle water with the salt, and do all these sort of mantras. There is a lot of paraphernalia to fill up the book pages, okay? Which is of no real consequence. But if you really create this divine circle cross that I have highlighted for you, but with the conviction that it is not you, the personality, that's creating it, but it is you acting as a vehicle, as an instrument of the I am presence in service to the absolute, infinite, limitless life, then knowing, behold, the highest is the absolute, and all entities, whether negative or positive, must bend their knee or yield to the absolute. And therefore that circle will not be penetrated by any malicious entity. For I tell you something, on the physical plane the astral body can pass through the walls. On the astral plane, an astral thought form that you have created with that kind of highest power will be like a brick wall to an astral entity that is trying to enter it with a malicious intent. And thus, that is your shield and your protection. Of course, if you are going to do some special service in the hells of the astral plane, as we are told in the Holy Bible that the Lord Christ entered like the Prince of Peace, the hells, and helped and liberated many souls, then there are some other more powerful protections, but it will not be wise to outline them here and now. However, let us learn first of all how to walk before we rush into the hells of the astral plane to be brave and heroes and save every soul that is caught up in there, yes? Let us help our neighbor who might need a bit of help because he is very depressed to begin with a little bit of a positive thought form, yes, that we impart to his mind. Yes, one circle this way, one circle that way, under, and one circle this way and over. Yes? So when they meet at the different points in front of you, to the right, 3 circles, yes. But with the conviction that you are invoking the absolute, infinite, limitless aspects of life, your I am presence, i.e. your divine self, and the vehicle that is doing the divine encircled cross is just an instrument, yeah? Not by the power of the personality. Okay. Well, if you do that which I have just said, then of course that is a very good protection. But one other simple protection is to be vibrating in your mind. That is why the Hindus have a certain mantra that is actually vibrating beneath the level of the mental awareness while they're busy doing their everyday things, so that continuously they generate a vibration of the highest order. They might be using the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, or they might be using another mantra, the Gayatri or whatever else, which generates these high vibrations, and that maintains their focus on the inner link. Yes? Yes, Kyrie eleison. Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison means, Lord, have mercy upon me. Okay? Kyrie eleison. Lord, have mercy. Yes. Yes, my dear. Yeah.
Just probably more down-to-earth question. And it's similar to your example of the dream of the lawyers.
Yes.
Up until now, and because I keep a record of my dreams, I sort of have decades of dreams, but I never know in advance where the gravity of the predictability lies.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, anyway, if you had known about the lawyers, you might have pushed harder to find out really what the case was going to be. And so in a way, I don't really know the function and purpose of these dreams that have always are looking in the future, and they come back to me like, oh, gosh.
Well,
but I don't, like, in a way, I don't know quite what do you do with them.
well, depends what they are. We must not do away with the prudence of the current consciousness that we have on the physical plane. We must not allow ourselves, you see, astral projection must not become another drug. You know, it mustn't become something that we, instead of going to the movies, we astrally project. It must not be, instead of going to the theater, we astrally project. Instead of going to a friend's house to have some time with them, we astrally project. No, it must be as a complementary part of our living in the everyday existence, and that the information that we draw from it, we need to evaluate it prudently using the faculties that we have, the reasoning faculty that we have, and endeavor to intuit also the reality that may lie therein. And of course, if you have a query with something, you can double check it. The next night you go to sleep, put as a test, I want to travel to the same place where I saw that and reconfirm this. So if on several occasions you do this, if I had thought of that, I was too busy looking after my ill mother at the time, if I had thought of actually doing this, I didn't pay too much attention, I would have confirmed it several times, and then of course I would have actually acted on it more forcefully, as you rightly suggested. Another thing that can really confirm that the astral plane does exist and we do astrally travel. Some of you may have dreams where you meet individuals that you have never met on your physical plane, but you are very intimate and you know them very, very well. So they are beings that you know on the astral plane. Blind people, yes, know of their dreams and they see very, very well there. I know that because my mother is blind, and she tells me in her dreams how she really meets such and such, and she sees wearing different color clothes and this and that and the other. And so wonderful confirmations all around. Go and speak to a blind man. I guarantee you, if he remembers his dream, as a blind man, he will not be blind on the astral plane, because on the astral plane, the impairment of the physical eye does not exist. It is his astral body with the astral senses that is actually picking up the information. Yes? And so on the astral plane is not blind. One more, yes?
If you meet somebody on the in a dream who has recently died,
Yes.
is that a real meeting? If you meet somebody in a dream who has recently died.
Well, it can be a real meeting. Depends, of course, on the nature of that dream experience and how powerful and how vivid it was, and what that so-called departed person conveyed to you. Certainly, it is very truthful that it can be a real meeting. My brother died in an accident, and that night when I found out that had actually happened, I went searching for him, and